Hi, this is Jory McMahon, and this is my project number 2 for Psychological Foundations in Miss Carolyn Zimmerly's class. Enjoy! I chose the development of language and literacy because, of course, I'm going to be a literacy teacher, and I thought this was appropriate for myself. Of course, I enjoy literacy and language, and why not learn a little bit more about it from our educational psychology book. Preschool years. Although there are individual differences in the rates at which children acquire language abilities, the sequence of accomplishments is similar for all children. Around age 1, children produce one-word utterances such as bye-bye or mommy. These words typically represent objects and events that are important to the child. Over the course of the second year of life, children begin to combine words into two-word sentences, such as more milk. During the preschool years, children's vocabulary increases along with their knowledge of the rules of spoken language. And then by the time they start school, children have mastered most of the grammatical rules of language, and their vocabulary consists of thousands of words. Preschool years oral language. Development of oral language or spoken language requires not only learning words, but they also learning the rules of words and sentence construction. Interestingly, children often learn the correct forms of irregular verbs, such as he broke the chair, and later replace them with incorrect but more rule-based construction, such as you've often heard kids say he braked the chair or he broke the chair. I've always found this really interesting and pretty funny. Most of these learning errors do add the past tense verbs, or they add them onto the past tense verbs. They are normal part of development, and they should not be corrected. Funnily, they should not be corrected. And just as they learn rules for forming words, children learn rules for sentences. Their first sentences usually contain only two words, such as want milk, see birdie, Jesse outside. But they soon learn to form more complex sentences and to vary their tone of voice to indicate questions, such as where doggy go. Preschoolers often play with language and or experiment with its patterns and rules. This experimentation frequently involves changing sounds, patterns, and meanings. Middle-class parents talked far more to their children than did working-class parents, and that their children had substantially different numbers of words in their vocabularies. Thought that was really interesting. Preschool years writing. Children's writing follows a developmental sequence. It emerges out of early scribbles, and at first it is spread randomly across the page. This characteristic reflects an incomplete understanding of word boundaries, as well as an inability to mentally create a line for placing letters. Early scribbles and random scribbles, they invent spellings, they use letter names, or short vowels are left out. Preschool years reading. Learning to read in the early elementary grades is one of the most important of all developmental tasks, both because other subjects depend highly on reading and because in our society, school success is so often equated with reading success. There is a very thorough research on emergent literacy, and I'll go into that a little bit in a minute. All children can learn concepts of print, plot, and other pre-reading concepts if attend kindergartens that emphasize reading. Young children have often learned concepts of print, such as that print is arranged from left to right, that spaces between words do have meaning, and that books are read from front to back. Many preschoolers can read books from beginning to end by interpreting the pictures on each page even. Emergent literacy. Emergent literacy is a term that is used to explain a child's knowledge of reading and writing skills before they learn how to read and write words. It signals a belief that in literate society, young children, even 1 and 2 years old, are in the process of becoming literate. Through the support of parents, caregivers, and educators, a child can successfully progress from emergent to conventional reading. There are 6 components of emergent literacy. The first is print motivation, which is basically being interested in and enjoying books, vocabulary, knowing the names of things, of course, print awareness, noticing print, knowing how to handle a book, and knowing how to follow words on a page. Narrative skills, being able to describe things and events and to tell stories. Letter knowledge, understanding letters that are different from each other, knowing their names and sounds, and recognizing letters everywhere. And phonological awareness, being able to hear and play with the smaller sounds and words. And emergent literacy is of critical importance in early education in light of research showing that children learn skills that prepare them to read years before they start school. The elementary and secondary years. Language and literacy develop at a rapid rate for children in the elementary and secondary grades. For example, Graves in 2007 estimated that the average student adds 3,000 words each year to his or her vocabulary. However, these words will vary as a student's motivations, interests, culture, and peer group come to have a huge impact. Literacy also develops rapidly in the elementary and middle grades, whereas the emphasis in the early elementary grades is primarily on decoding and fluency. Students from second grade onward are increasingly focused on building comprehension, vocabulary, and study skills. Promoting literacy. Many of the educational implications derived from research on children's literacy development transfer findings from 2 main sources. The first is parental and teacher behaviors, which encourage oral language development and studies of children who learn to read without formal classroom instruction. You can encourage children's involvement with print by reading in small groups, having volunteers read to children individually, and allowing children to choose books to read. Intimate reading experiences allow children to turn pages, pause to look at pictures or ask questions, and read along with an adult even. There are some frequent recommendations to promote literacy, reading to children, surrounding them with books and other printed materials, making various writing materials available, and encouraging reading and writing, being responsive to children's questions about letters, words, and spellings. How to build vocabulary. Sometimes this is difficult, of course. Students are so consumed in electronics these days, and cell phones, smartphones, etc., that it's hard to build kids' vocabulary. By the time they get to high school, then their vocabulary isn't very large because students don't like reading. They want to sit at home and play video games or sit on Facebook and text their friends and stuff like that. And I just put in a few things in here to get students excited about learning new words. Get students excited about words. Encourage students to read, especially on topics that interest them. Teach selected words that are used frequently and broadly. Use cooperative learning methods, and give students opportunities to use new vocabulary words in their own writing or conversations. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.